you all had your tea? I'm assured that's what you guys do. It's 5 o'clock in my time zone in the morning, so I'm really excited to be here and also really excited that I got in yesterday, so I had time to sleep. Here I am. Why is it not doing the thing? That is really not where I want to be. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. No. There we go. The 7 righteous fights that you should be fighting. So I give this talk at every conference that I can get to hold still for it because it turns out it's universally applicable to everybody who does development or manages development or anything else. Click. If you're going to use a clicker, you should turn it on. This is how you can get a hold of me. I am promoting a new thing where speakers add their own hashtags to talks so that I can storify it later and find it for myself. And also, I think it makes it really useful for you all to have, in addition to the conference tag, a short tag to use. You can also find me later. I'm easy to find. It's not too hard to track me down. So the definition of a technical writer is a master of assembling technical clues into a narrative whole. Basically, my 2 jobs are writing anti-words, which I don't have time to tell you about today, and taking a whole bunch of disparate knowledge, bits and bobs, and gluing them together into a story. That means that I'm super good at synthesis and noticing things. What I've noticed is that we have some persistent problems. This is a picture of a truck that is stuck in the mud. I think all of us have things that we prefer to work on and stages of companies that we prefer to be with. I myself am an early stage writer. Like I like greenfield writing. I want to come in when you don't have any technical documentation and fix that for you. I hate maintenance. I'm terrible at it and I hate it and I admire the people who can do it. So as we move through our careers, we all get stuck in these ruts where we're doing the same things over and over again, but then we don't see the emergent consequences of what we're doing. We don't see how that ends for other people. So how many of you have gotten the lecture about compound interest, about retirement? Right? Somebody said to you, by the way, if you start saving now, you're going to have a lot more money for retirement because it compounds. How many of you have thought about that in terms of technical debt? Right. So if you are accumulating technical debt early on, you are building yourself compound interest. It doesn't matter that much. It's very small when you only have 7 pages or 3 features. Whatever, no big deal. But if you don't fix it now, what you're actually going to have is 47 pages, and it's going to be a lot more expensive to fix. So here's an example. I was working for a company, and we were push because we wanted to get ready for a major conference, a major industry thing. So we were stripping out everything that was completely unnecessary. We're just like down to the bone, minimum viable product, right? And I was helping them do this. And we stripped out our plan to do referenced labels for our UI. And then we got a proof of concept contract for a company in Brazil. Well, they wanted it in Portuguese. They're kind of picky about that. If you haven't made software for people in Brazil, they're kind of picky about that. So we had stripped out the ability to just hand over a file to a translator. All of our UI was hard-coded. It was a translation Tower of Babel. Instead of having a simple way to do translation, we had this terrible mess. It took 5 days to hand-code it again in Portuguese, and a super expensive translator, by the way. And it took 2 weeks to go back and fix it because we had already built so much of the product and we had to retrofit it. It was a really painful experience. So you tell yourself you're going to go back and fix it later, right? Yeah. This is going to happen, I promise. Scout's honor, whatever. It's not going to happen. That's a lie. You cannot fix it later because as soon as you have a product that's out that you can have a little breathing room, you have users. And the users have firm beliefs about where their cheese lives, and the minute you try and fix something, you have moved their cheese and they're angry. So if you wait until after you have released, you have a lot more resistance to doing the right thing, to doing change. Waiting until you have a release to fix these problems is like trying to poke chocolate chips into an already baked cookie. It's just not going to work as well. You can mash them in, but it's not the same as baking them in. So I'm going to pause on this slide. Here's the money shot slide. I want you to understand what the 7 righteous fights are. They are localization, security, extensibility, documentation, affordance, acceptance, and accessibility. And we're going to go through these really fast because it's a lot to absorb. So sorry, transcriptionist, I apologize for my accent and my speed. So, localization is really important. Localization is what tells someone that they are supposed to be in your product. This is how somebody knows that they are your audience. And I thought it was really funny that I had this word in here, and I'm like, oh wait, I can change that. But you'll notice that I had forgotten to do it on the previous slide and on a subsequent slide. You need to do localization so that users know that they belong here. And the thing you should do at the very beginning of a project is hire a localization expert. And they're going to tell you what you need to do, and you really only need them for a few days. Like, it would be nice if you hired them the whole time, but let's be real, nobody has the money to pitch that. But even if you only hire them for a week, you're going to get so much value out of understanding where you need to go in the future. So here are the things that I've learned about localization. Don't hard code the interface elements. Just please don't do that. It's miserable and terrible and painful. Don't put any words besides your company name in the logos or images. Translators who can do graphics are super expensive. So if you have an image or a screen capture, God help you, the ability to translate that into another language is really difficult, and also German is very long. Like the compound nouns, they just kill you in an interface. Bake in extended character support. Everyone has the right to be able to put their own name into an interface. Noreen Plunkett used to keep a list of shame of all of the conferences she went to where people could not handle the Gaelic in their name and had gotten her name or their name badge wrong. And I always thought that was sort of funny, but the more I thought about it, the more it's a human disrespect issue to not be able to use your own name just because some developer didn't want to support extended ASCII. Like, don't be that jerk. If people are using emojis for names, support emojis. Like, support people's names. So, security, brace yourselves, because this should totally be a book, and it's not. We're going to go through it really fast. The internet is not actually a series of tubes connected to hackers wearing hoodies, it turns out. And at the early stage of your product, unless you're doing something really weird, odds are nobody cares. Nobody's going to try and hack your product. But there will come a day when somebody hacks your Waffle Buddy sharing app and posts everybody's syrup preferences on Pastebin, and then you have to stop all of production and all of everything and fix it, and also deal with the optics of having gotten that wrong. Nobody wants to do that. It's embarrassing, and it takes a lot of time, and also, I can't believe you used Blueberry. That's so gross. Security is neither cheap nor easy, but it beats the alternative. This is so hard to sell, I can't believe it. But it is so expensive to get security tragically wrong. So here are a couple things you can do early on. Leave room for encryption. Like, bake in HTTPS. Leave SSL between your services. Just do those common best practices super early on, and then people won't be having a moment where they're like, oh, retrofitting, it's terrible. What if we just like HTTP fine, whatever. Destroy data. I have a whole talk that I want to give on how we need to get rid of poisonous data that we're storing. But you need to understand that if someone creates an account with you and then deletes it, you need to do more than flip a bit and retain all their data. I know this is different in Europe, and I didn't have time to research how it works, but in America, I can apply for a job at a place that I applied for a job 7 years ago, and they're like, hey, we still have all your data. And I'm like, that's terrible. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of personal data that you're dealing with there. So make a plan for how your data dies. How does it senesce? How does it go out of currency? Because data is not a static thing. And the more data you keep, the more threat surface someone has to attack, as the US government learned to their dismay. Don't roll your own auth. Just don't do it, because you're not going to be as good as the people who have spent 1 million years doing it. And you're going to make a monkey Jesus. So the people who are running your product would really like it if you used Active Directory or SAML, but really probably Active Directory. Depends on what environment you're in. There are perfectly good authentication and authorization services out there. Please don't do that. Just license it and pay for it, or use OpenID or something, but don't roll your own. Stop saying that word. That word is secure. Imagine there's a pack of rabid lawyers who are waiting to chew your clothes off every time you promise somebody that you're going to be secure. I deal with this all the time because I really like writing for companies that do security. And the number of companies that I go in to write security for, and they're actually just doing authorization or authentication or something that is part of security but not all of security, is kind of shocking and appalling. So stop saying secure unless you're really secure, really, really secure. So, extensibility. What makes you so sure that API is going to be internal forever? And if you are not writing APIs as your internal communication methods, why the heck not? Because someone is going to ask you for that. They don't want your front end, they just want your API. I always explain APIs to people, especially like my parents, as a system of Legos that allows you to connect to other people's data and services. And I really think that's a useful way to think about it, because we want to be standard and we want to be predictable, and we don't want to be those off-brand Legos that don't quite connect. I worked on a project where we had internal APIs and they were all named really badly, after dead products that nobody was using, which was okay. It was internal. We knew what the dead products were, right up until somebody asked us to use our API and not our interface. And then we had to recode it all because some of the dead product names were not business appropriate. And you can't give customers things like that. You just can't. So I'm a technical writer. You knew I'd get here. Let me tell you about documentation, because it's really important. Documentation is not state secrets. Documentation is subtle self-promotion. The number of people I work for who want to put documentation behind a wall where they log in and collect sales information is appalling. Because if I'm a sysadmin, if I'm an installer, I want to see what the documentation is like. I want to see if I have compatibility with it. I want to see if I need to buy a new server. I do not want to get a sales call. I don't have any sales potential. I just want to know if this product will work for me. So stop hiding your documentation somewhere where people can't get it. Here are the things that I'll have to tell you about user documentation. Retrofitting user documentation is super easy. That's what I do. I have business cards if you want to know. And user documentation is super easy, but here's what's not. Oh, sorry, this is my user documentation. Has everybody had tea yet? Developer onboarding. What if you had a tax that cost you 10 developer hours a week for months? I'm here to tell you you do. Because what you want to do is onboard new developers as fast as humanly possible. And what you're doing is making your existing developers do all the hand-holding. This is hard on existing developers who want to be coding, and this is hard on new developers who would like to not have to ask questions every 12 minutes because they're professionals and they would like to know what they're doing. So if you slow down a little bit and take the time to write the developer onboarding documentation, everyone is happier and you waste less money. Also, little bunnies don't stand on your keyboard. Production scripts and build sequence. You're never going to hire a technical writer to do this at the early stage. But fear of the bus, right? What happens if your one build engineer wins the lottery or leaves the country or gets hit by a bus? Well, you can't release. You can't release if you don't know, written down somewhere, how exactly you make a build. Secretive build engineers are bad build engineers. When you hire a build engineer, the first thing you need to do is look at their existing documentation. If they haven't documented how they create a build, don't hire them, because you are going to spend forever trying to pry information out of them, and it's just a waste of everybody's time. Release notes are your most important documents. If anybody reads any part of your documentation, it's the release notes, because the installers and the sysadmins want to know if you're going to break them or fix them. And they will go through those and they will read them. And that documentation deserves a little more love than being stuck in a GitHub README. Spend a little more time on it and say, here are the issues fixed, here are the incompatibilities. We care about your experience when you're installing. Affordance. Affordance is the subtle clues that tell us how we use something. So you know how it takes 3 tries to stick your USB in correctly? That's bad affordance. We never know which direction it's supposed to go because it seems almost symmetrical, but it's not. Affordance in software is telling people subtly which direction they're supposed to be going and how they're supposed to be using something. This is a place where I used to work. If you look at it carefully, you can see that the crosswalk button, the crosswalk, and the sidewalk are misaligned. And this is terrible for people who have accessibility problems like crutches or wheelchairs. And this is super terrible because I live in Minneapolis and we measure our snow in feet. So every time they plow the sidewalk, they create a berm of snow up against the button that you need to press to cross the street, which is pretty busy. This is terrible affordance. This is what people thought should happen because those are the setbacks that we regulate for where the sidewalk goes. But just because that's where it ought to go doesn't mean that's where users want it. When we create software, it's very easy for us to follow best practices without thinking about what a user is looking to do. Some people have more privilege in life. So I want you to think about going through and doing a task with your software. Do it, like you normally do. Oh wait, you're a developer. You've given yourself all of the permissions. Now, step it down and do it with user permissions. How much more painful is that? Is that something you want to do every day? Do you want to do it 8 times a day? Because that's what your users are experiencing. This is a homunculus, which I think is a super interesting concept. It's a weird, distorted drawing because it's based on the sensation map as opposed to the physical perception map. I think it's easy for us to think of our software as sort of like a picture of a person without actually going and seeing a heat map of how people are using it. So I want you to think about this homunculus and say to yourself, am I using it like as edge cases, or am I actually concentrating on your hand, on the thing that you use most often? Acceptance. You should maybe find some people who are users. Not like fake users, not like we gave it to marketing because they seem not very technical. A, they are, and B, that's a terrible idea. You need to find people who are sitting in fire trucks and hospitals and offices who are like your users. Who are your users? Because it turns out not all Legos have the same job, and not all software gets used in a perfectly nice, clean cubicle. Take this user, sit them down, and have them do what they do every day. Don't explain anything. Shh. Don't explain anything. It will be almost impossible for you because they will do it wrong. They'll do something that you're like, that's not how it works, but it's how it works for them. So you need to watch what they are actually doing and change your software to meet user experience. So lots of people who are early in the stages of writing software can't hire an expert. You can't convince your boss to do it. It's super expensive. If you can't hire an expert, become a student. And I really think as lead developers, you have a lot of opportunity to drive people toward better development. So the book that I recommend to start with is Kathy Sierra's Badass, Making Users Awesome, which is an amazing book and so good, and you should all read it. But it's really about this focus on people don't want to be using software. They want to be, refining their pictures or talking to their friends. We tend to forget that because we're so deep in the weeds, but software is a tool, not an end. Accessibility. I started wearing reading glasses last year, and I was like, this is very interesting. Accessibility is really important because eventually we're all going to need it. So there are a couple quick things that you can do. Obviously you should hire an accessibility expert, and obviously that's not going to happen. So if you wear glasses, take your glasses off and look at your screen. How's that look? If you have uncorrected vision, borrow your coworker's glasses gently, because they're a device, and look at the screen. How's that working for you? Have you looked at your software on a non-retina screen? I can always tell people who have been developing on giant retina screens because it's really lovely right up until you get it on a small screen. And I know you have software that theoretically reflows everything, and you're like, the CSS is taking care of that. There's 14 million phones. I can't look at them all. Have you looked at it on your phone? Have you looked at it on your sister's phone? Like, take a look and make sure that you're actually readable at all layers. 8%. 8% of men are colorblind to some degree or another. Strangely, almost none of that 8% go into UX development. Which is a pity, because I think that there need to be more people who are doing UX development who have disabilities of various sorts, even mild ones like colorblindness. Screen reader links. So if you ever have a screen reader output and your links look like this, you're failing someone. You're failing someone who is using a screen reader, and you're maybe failing someone who's using a tab browser. Like, if it doesn't work on Gopher, it's a little difficult for everyone. The other thing that you can do with this, besides using descriptive link titles, is hide your mouse in your desk drawer for a week. Like seriously, unplug it, make it inaccessible. How miserable is it to use your product? Can you click on the links? Can you access all of the features, or are some of them really mouse dependent? All right. It's not a real technical talk without a cat picture, right? It turns out that not everyone has hot and cold running broadband all the time, and that people are paying for data, and that not everyone has the same access. This is really difficult for us to comprehend because we have to for our jobs. So this is a righteous fight that I lost. I was at Microsoft, and I was working on the server product, the server security product, and it was the era when Microsoft was going toward downloadable help. And they're like, okay, we're going to put some skeleton help up, and then if you need more extensive stuff, it'll be great. We'll have current stuff that you can download. Did I mention I was working on server security? People who have secured servers put them in server rooms with very ferocious firewalls that don't touch the internet, because letting your servers touch the internet is like letting them lick dirty toilets. It's It's not something you want to do. It's gross out there, and you don't let your servers touch the internet. Well, if you wanted the help files, you had to let them into the internet. So what would happen is people would go back to their desks and sit down at their desktop and attempt to pull up the server documentation. But because they were on a desktop version of Windows, the server documentation wouldn't come up because they weren't licensed for server on that computer. I am still mad about this. As you can tell, this was Longhorn, so it was a long time ago. But think about how it's going to work if you don't have internet connection, because a lot of the world doesn't have internet or doesn't have high-speed internet. We are all only temporarily able-bodied. There are people sitting next to you in the room who can't use a mouse, who curse every time your menu is gray on gray with gray text, who hate it that you can't scroll to the end of an infinite scroll page to get to the things at the bottom, the text at the bottom. I'm one of those people sometimes, and sometimes I'm not. But it is coming for you. Age is coming for you. Disability is coming for you. If you won't do it for other people, consider doing it for your future self. So now what? I hope I've convinced you that these are fights worth fighting, that you should go out and do these things. But if you try and do all 7 at once, you will burn out and piss off your boss. So, do what you can. Write a coding style guide and follow it. Host brown bag lunches. I suggest showing this talk, but I really love the idea of showing talks to other people and sitting around and talking about them as a brown bag lunch. You don't have to have any of your people talk. You could just do it this way. Use pair programming for best practices, not just to crank through things, but to mentor each other in the best way to do something and to keep each other accountable. Add tests for accessibility and usability. There are a lot of really great tests out there. Khan Academy has one, GitHub has one. If you look for accessibility testing, you can find it. Cultivate diversity and representation on your team. One of the things that makes it easier to represent your entire audience is if your team looks like your users. If your team is more like people who are out there in the field. Ask questions. Say to yourself, why are we doing it that way, and how much is it going to cost us in the end? Money is the root of all business decisions. This is your lever, because no company is really motivated to do things for the right reason, or because it's ethical, or because it's inclusive. No, what they're motivated by is saving money. And if you use this as your lever, I think you're going to have a lot more luck, because what you're trying to do is say, look, the compound interest of not doing this is going to be so expensive. Here's the cost-benefit analysis of spending a little now as opposed to a lot later. You're not going to win this every time, but it is so much more persuasive than, well, it's the right thing to do. So, the 7 righteous fights. Localization, which I got wrong again. Make users comfortable. Security, make users safer. Extensibility, make code usable for other people. Documentation, disaster-proof your organization. Affordance, nudge good behavior. Acceptance, test with actual users. And accessibility, include people. So, too long, read Twitter. Don't build in compounding technical debt that you could trivially avoid. This is all I want you to think about. Is there a way that I can make future me less angry? Because future you is always a little mad at past you. And I thank Kate for this idea because it's a great idea. Future Kate is always a little mad at past Kate who is trying to kill her. Don't be the person that you hate from the past. Be productively lazy. I really want you to think about how to be productively lazy, how to invest a little bit to get a lot of reward. This is like writing automation tests. It's a little bit of effort up front and it saves you a ton of time on the back end. Or teaching your kids to wash dishes. It's a little bit of effort now, and you get to make them do it for years. Be productively lazy. Be interested in saving time. Thank you.